we want at the end of the session. So,
you're very welcome. I'm glad to be here. I enjoyed the earlier sessions too, and I'm following up on that. I know that they've been there's a lot of material covered, and by this stage you're probably getting a little bit tired of listening. So I'm really going to bring you to a stage where you're active. I haven't quite as much time as I anticipated, but I'm not going to overrun because I know some of you are down to travel connections and all the rest of it. So I'll still finish promptly, so don't get too concerned. But what I want to do is I want to try and optimize the session so that I'll talk less at the beginning and we'll be breaking up into groups and we'll get on and do some work. And I hope to be able to convince you of a way in which you can make things happen more quickly. I think it came across from the student feedback there and the presentations that sometimes getting started, getting the thing on the move, making things happen, not leaving things too late, all those things in this particular module, those things can be a real problem. They can become a real problem. So really what I'm talking about today is a pragmatic, practical way to try and get control of your dissertation. I'm more focused on the dissertation than the actual research itself, because you've covered that with John and you've prepared good examples of what has happened in previous years. But the practical element of finding some way in which you can handle the mechanics of doing a dissertation. Is there a way that can make it happen in a planned way, in a managed way, a project managed way? Can you project manage the process, the research process that you engage in now to produce a good dissertation at the end of it? My argument is that you can't do that. Some people would prefer other ways to work, and there's nothing absolutely sacred in what I say. There's nothing whatsoever that I'm saying today that forces you down a particular route. The only thing I can say in argument, as an argument for it, for adopting something like this, or a variation of it, is that it'll help you gain control of the actual project itself. So let's talk about managing the dissertation project. I have a few kind of things to just mention before we start and engage with this thing called a concept I've called a dissertation management tool. And it's a sort of a way of controlling using normal management models, old-fashioned management models, planning, organizing, coordinating, controlling, those kind of concepts. Just the very basics to give you a degree of control over the work that you do. And it has benefits, I believe, that are well worth following. And all our feedback from those that have used it is that they found it very helpful, very positive, and helped gain control. It also helps you liaise with your supervisor as you work along. So a few points. First of all, I would hope that we're going to answer kind of questions. What is a research dissertation? You know what it is, you've heard about what goes into producing one, and so on. But is there a way to manage the process? I hope there is, and I'm going to try and prove it by getting you, by the end of the day, to actually produce a version of a dissertation management tool completed for one of the projects in one of your groups. And that's by 4:30, so that's a very tough assignment. You may be wondering, how on earth could I get that far with a project that I don't even know the name of it yet? I'll have to wait and see which project title is picked in the group. So it's maybe it's a big ask, but nevertheless, I think it's quite possible, and I want to convince you of why. For one simple reason: if I can convince you of that, it should give you the confidence to say, God, if I could do that sitting up here in DCU between 3 and 4:30, albeit in a group. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to bring it to bear on my topic. So that's the point I wanted to make there. What value does completing a dissertation give you? Just why do it well? What does that give you career-wise? Is it very difficult to do? Yeah. Well, it requires consistent, solid effort. And the more effort you put in, the more you get out. Is it possible to do very well in it? Yes. Is it possible to do very badly in it? Yes. But you have a lot of supports. You have a lot of things to help you. This is one thing. The supervisor is the primary source of support and so on. And the experience, listening to the other students talking to past students now talking to you today, that gives you an idea of what people went through in the process. What myths and misconceptions are there about dissertations? How can one be trained to write a dissertation, and is the preparation of a research dissertation amenable to management techniques and methods? Well, I maintain that it is, and I'm going to try and justify that. I'm going to try and prove it to you and let you prove it to yourself. What value does it give to you? Well, that's really concerned with thinking of the outcome. Imagine yourself having finished it. Imagine yourself being in the shoes of those that work today and demonstrated their experience and what they achieved. And you had a good idea of, there was a solid amount of work there, one way or the other. But what does it give you? What do you expect to have at the end of it? I think a unique knowledge and expertise about the area that you've chosen. You'll probably be an expert in the area for a limited time. In all research, this is the sad story. You get out there, you do the research, you do the literature review, you choose your methodology, you do your whatever kind of work you have to do, you draw your conclusions, and you are an expert for a while, maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years, maybe for 3 years. Somebody else will stand on your shoulders, or you'll be there in the mix, and at the end of the day, the new knowledge or the new insight, more than likely it's an insight or a new innovation or something like that which will come out, rather than some grand big eureka breakthrough. So you will also be able to conduct research in a scholarly manner. Now, why is that important? It goes back to what is the definition of doing a research thesis in the first place. And there are different types. There's the research dissertation, which is part of a taught program. There's the one which is maybe 2 years or 3 years part-time research only, and so on. This is the one that's in a program, so it's short, has a short time scale, 9 months to 12 months. That's the typical sort of time that's available. And when you think that part-time, if you were doing a research-only dissertation, it would probably be taking you'd be given 3 years to do it. So it's a substantive piece of work. Full-time student going part-time would take 2 years. 2 years full work, supposed to be focused on this as the only thing. They might have to do other courses as an adjunct to it, but that's the kind of challenge. For your one, the standard has to be as good as that standard, but the project has to be circumscribed a bit. It has to be. You have to have boundaries. You have to be able to hone in on some selected piece of work to get it finished at a time. I've seen some projects which people have worked day and night on, and they've managed to do much more than is required for this, but it is required, 60 hours, 70 hours a week. They'd be fortunate they haven't had a job and a family or whatever to look after at the same time. So you don't want to get into that situation. You want to be able to estimate somewhere up front with your supervisor how long is this going to take me. The process should give you the ability, and if you do it, it should give you the ability to critically assess the work of other scholars. You should be able to read papers and journal papers and go to conferences and listen to academics talk, and be able to critically assess the quality and the work, not that purpose, but for coming to terms with the substantive matter that the work refers to. This is sort of a capstone module, this one, where you bring together things from the rest of the course. That's the nice thing about a course program, that you get the mix of modules and you bring them all together, and sometimes you get to bring them together in the form of this dissertation. It can be a marked, so a point of demarcation, where you come up with your own insights, your own findings, your own views on innovation, and you can stand up and make the case for your findings anywhere. You can bring powerful techniques and methods to other areas, like business, public service, education. If you do this and expose yourself once to doing a formal, some of you may have masters already, but doing a good research dissertation it's a mark of, I suppose what it qualifies you to do is, it gives you a sort of licentiate, is that the word? It gives you the qualification to conduct research professionally and to be able to talk to other professionals who have produced research and to read their work satisfactorily. It also gives you the ability to transfer the kind of skills that you've learned in doing research into business or wherever. What else can I say about it? Move on to the next slide just then. So, what takeaways can you get? Well, you can know something about the criteria to apply when choosing dissertation topic. This is the takeaways from today. The takeaways from today is, I hope you go away at 4:30 and you'll know something more about the criteria to apply when choosing a dissertation topic. But you'll be working in close-knit groups, 7 groups, and you'll have a facilitator, and by the end of the session, you should be able to construct one of these dissertation management tools, and in doing that, you'll be honing in on the actual topic, on the criteria that, where you can see the pluses and minuses of this particular topic and so on. It'll give you a good innings into choosing a research topic, and you might look at your own research topic after today, and you might say to yourself, look, maybe I was a bit broad, or maybe I was a bit, there are things maybe I'll revisit that, maybe won't. But if you do with the help of your supervisor. Today is about a hypothetical exercise to see how far we can get with the dissertation management tool. So you learn about the planning for projects like this, and that can transfer to business. You know, it can transfer to any point in industry, any presentation you have to make. It can just add to the other skills that you have in that area. Today is a learn by doing thing, so I'm not going to talk an awful lot more. When we get into those facilitation groups, we'll be able to motor through this stuff quickly. So, 2 things about the research topic. Criteria, useful criteria in choosing, and sources of topic ideas. First of all, the criteria that are usually useful to consider. Not always these things apply, but mostly they do. The scope and boundaries. The scope and boundaries of the research dissertation. At some point you have to draw a line. We heard in the earlier sessions, we heard how you could get into a very big, broad literature review, so big that, you know, it soon starts to emerge that your title and your choice of topic will be a little bit, it will be a bigger project than you really wanted for a dissertation like this as part of the talk program. So that's where, you know, focus is needed, because you don't want to get either involved in a project which is twice as big or 3 times as big as it need be, because you're still trying to get the quality that you would have had in the longer project. The quality coming out of a minor dissertation, as it's called, as opposed to a research-only dissertation, the quality should be the same. It should be absolutely no reason why the quality shouldn't be the same. The only difference is the subject matter and the amount of, the constraints, the boundaries really apply in your case. In some ways it's harder, because you know, you can imagine a day student who's going to undertake a 2-year master's. They can spend 3 or 4 months choosing around topics and reading up. You know, it could be 6 months before they really get into the thing if it's a 2-year schedule they've got. So there's still 18 months to do the work and do the, you know, the literature review they can be doing in the early bit, do more of it later. But you don't have that. You know, it will soon be Christmas, and then you're in that pressurized scene where after Christmas, as someone said earlier today, you know, you can get trapped. Other points that I'd make about it: compatibility with the existing and available time scale that's required, and in our case it's about 8 to 9 months. Complex ethical issues. Supposing you're doing something complicated where it involves sticking needles into people, or you won't be doing that, any of you, hopefully. But besides, you might have to go. I remember once supervising a project where it was to do with suicide, and obviously the ethical issues, everything that have to be cleared. Get yourself to the point you could get permission to do it. It could take you 3 months, 6 months just to get that permission to work in a sector like that, where there's confidential information and tricky information and difficult information and so on. So that could be your supervisor might well say to you, well, do you really want to spend so much time on ethics and ethics approval? Because you may just have to do it. It's a tougher world now with GDPR and so on, but it would always have been with anything, it would always apply, that you would have to conform to proper ethical standards and so on. But that's another thing that might defer you. Your ideal passion to do something might be to do something in an area which would require high ethics, but might be better not to do it because of the ethical considerations. Pre-knowledge and expertise. I think that's a nice one. I always thought that one as an attractive kind of proposition. If you were quite expert in some particular discipline, if it was something to do with electric cars or something like that, and you happen to be in the business, that's a nice sort of position, because you're bringing a lot of knowledge to the project, a lot of background stuff. It might help you. So it might attract you. And it might have other benefits. It might help you career-wise, professionally. Usually, the biggest thing you get out of it is the personal level of confidence that you get to be able to move as a licensed researcher, as it were. Methodology too complicated. Yeah, for some projects, I have a book at home, and it's nearly 2,000 qualitative methods of methodologies for research. And I've read about 20 pages of that book, and I think things will probably stay that way. Now, if I was doing a PhD, or I was doing a tough master's in some particular area where the methodologies were tricky, or the mixed types of methodology required, I'd probably want to go and look at that. But you're not in that business for this dissertation, I would submit. So because you might have to adopt a very complicated methodology, which would take you maybe 3 months to even get into it. The ultimate value to you is, of course, that you, when you complete it, you have a personal level of confidence and possibly new competencies, new skills, new knowledge, and professionally the same. So it can be, you can follow your own passion or interest if you like, pick something that is not for work, is not for your profession, not for your career, or you can do the other thing, you can go for something that's going to help your career or help you professionally. unacceptable dependencies on other people. This is one you run into fairly often when you're monitoring or supervising or mentoring projects. And it's sometimes some people will promise you that they're putting in a new system or some new kind of product or some new service, and that, you know, it'd be great for you to, I'd love if you do a piece of research on that, and they'd be promised everything that they will support that. But then if the project gets suspended within the company, the organisation or whatever, for 6 months or a year, suddenly all the things you've done in the first 3 months until this happened are set to null, and you've got the problem of you're not going to be able to get the data that you wanted and so on. You're not going to be able to do the work in effect. And I've seen projects actually have to be abandoned and people have to start next year. So these are just kind of things you have to think of when you're picking your topic. And it's well worth putting in real hours to sort those out with your tutor. That's what, and with other students. You know, with your cohort of students that you're working with on the course. Possible sources then, where do you get the? You already have an idea, and you'd like to test that idea. It's something really kind of sharp that you hit on. Your employer can be a great source. They sometimes will welcome somebody working, and sometimes they won't welcome somebody working on certain things. You know, or they'll want to circumscribe the work that you do very closely, and certainly any publication arising from it might be well censored. We could all think of things if you were to look in the area of security, data security, things like that, and within a company, the news for that sort of thing, or you know, breaches and so on. They just mightn't want to go there. They mightn't want anything like a dissertation that's in the public domain afterwards, it's available in libraries and shared. Although you can have to withdraw items, which have to do with specifically, and make sure that it's done properly, so things just don't leak that are confidential. There are always things that are, you know, competitively sensitive and so on. Suggestions of other academics, any of the academics, the supervisors, the tutors, people that you've had during the course, colleagues. You know, there's no reason why you don't get your ideas from those kind of areas. Build on previous dissertations or research work. Yeah, you can always take a piece of research work that's done, and it's been done, say, in France, and you say, no one's ever done this sort of thing in Ireland. And sometimes that can make it very narrow and specific and good and useful. So you can do that, so you can build on that, and you get a better volume of work, and you'll be bringing in the work that was done in France with the work that you've done or do, and that could be a very satisfying volume. Trends, you know, what's big, you know, algorithmic interviews or recruitment or something that's happening, something we know is happening. You can pick areas like that. And that can be the professions, public service, management, business, any part of industry, education itself, and so on. Again, I learn sometimes about picking things that are very, that are distant, that they're definitely going to happen, but there might not be a great literature there. There might not be a research literature, and that can be troublesome. There is one advantage to it, is you can get in there and maybe put a paper down there which people will be quoting for quite a while to come, and it'll be quite notable. But on the other hand, there could be risk in it. So really what I'm saying, these are things that you really have to sort of think, how will that, my project, my dissertation title, research project title, how will that fit? So that's by way of background dissertations. So a tool to help us work. Now said, it's a pragmatic, simple, straightforward way of managing research and preparing your dissertation. It could serve you from today when you go home after this session, but not quite today, tomorrow. And it should help you get to the point where you can establish contact with maybe the supervisor in time, but in the meantime do some other research around those points that I made before, those earlier points. You know, is what I had in mind suitable? Is it? And have I any worries about it? You can do that today, actually. Only while we're talking in session as 7 groups, but that won't be sufficient. This tool will enable you to envisage the work and proceed iteratively. You produce a version of this thing up front. Today we're going to show you how you produce the first version. It's sort of, on completion, it looks like the table of contents for the dissertation that's 9 months away. And of course, is it accurate? No. Is it an attempt, a reasonable attempt? Well, you'll fail on being able to put down certain things in it. That's not a failure, it's simply you don't have the information, you haven't done the thinking yet, but it'll point the bits that are going to be tough. So it'll help you develop that sort of understanding of what you want to do. It's a method of focusing, it's a way of seeking balance between the structure, the content, and the substance of the work. To know that it's not all up front in the first 2 chapters, a literature review of 100 pages, and the rest of the project the rest of the dissertation is 15 pages. You know, there's something unequal in this, you know. There's been a lot of work done maybe in the research literature review, but it may not be that good in terms of balance when the thing is written. This should write as though it's it produces a publication, it goes in the library here, that's in the public domain, is a contribution to research. Maybe not a big one, maybe a big one, but probably not a big one. A new insight, maybe an insight on something, you know, some new angle on it, something that's just interesting, something that's topical, something that adds to the body of literature. And that's the way research is built. It's not a formula for doing the work. This is not a means of kind of, I give you a few forms, you fill those out, and you know what the project is. It's not that at all. This is a tool which you recognize is going to change, maybe month on month, or every 2 months, let's say. Let's say you produce 4 versions of this over the life of this project, over the 8 months, whatever. That's the way I would see this working. So it gives you a basis for communication with the supervisor. It gives you a basis for measuring how much you've got to do, of identifying what you've got to do, of the various sections of the document. So it focuses on the document up front, where you don't really have much, but you have more than you think you have, as you discover today. In effect, it applies one of the earliest management models. I said that earlier. I think it's a model dated from the 1920s. Plan, organise, control, coordinate, direct. You know, I think they're the 5 or 6 things. It enables you to engage earlier with the project and gives you more time to deepen your thinking about the substance. My experience of running this type of approach, my personal experience of it, is that it enables you to get into the substantive work, the substance, the content, as opposed to the mechanics of organising and writing a dissertation. You know, the research that you do is about the substance and content, and the conclusions, obviously. But the actual problem you have now is you've got to do that, but you've also got to produce a document which represents that work. So, you've been given copies. I think they're available. Are they on paper? Yeah. one of these is called, this is about hypothetical writing, hypothetical topic. We're not going to digest this and plow through this today, but you're going to get a copy of it because you might just like to use it as a sort of a headline, an example. Now, it's not necessarily a great example, but it's an example of somebody like yourself at some stage attempting to start a project which is to do with career guidance. And it's a complete version of it, managed to answer hypothetical dissertation about aspects of career guidance. And its title, its running title was Career Guidance and Qualification Courses, a retrospective view of those in their purpose. The idea was they wanted to get a snapshot of people who are practicing in their purpose, say 30, 39. They wanted to find out what career guidance they got at school, at college, privately, where they picked up stuff, where were the sources, how good was it? So it's a nice little project actually. You'd love to read it probably as an article. But if you were given that title today, or if you're not going to be given that title today, this is the way in which it might look. This document, it's called a document B here. It's a dissertation management tool, completely filled in as of maybe the first or second day. You wouldn't do it in an hour now, but you might do it in 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Now, if you could do that with your topic, if you could do that exact type of job with your topic, you can end up with a real advantage from the point of view of engaging with the project earlier. The next thing is look at document A. Now we're getting down to the real brass tacks here. Document A is really to do with I'm leaving document C with you to digest in your own time. You can look at it today as we're going through here in the hours that we're going to spend on this. Document A is really a control document for today. And I'll come back to that in a second because you're also getting a copy of a blank template. That's for today. And you're going to try and complete that today, every one of you. And one of you is going to be a leader in the group. It will be about 5 or 6, 7 people in the group. And one of you is going to be elected leader or made leader or volunteered by others, or you're going to volunteer yourself. So that brings me to really the business of the rest of the day is going to be yours and we're going to work with you. What are you going to do? Break it to proof as per the plan, which Mullally has set out very carefully. I think she's told you the names of the people in the group. You're going to pick a group leader. You're going to have an assigned member of our team here, and that team is going to work with you. And the team is that team person from DCU will be there on and off, not talking all the time. It's not about that person to lead the project, it's not wanting you to lead it. To pick a topic and lead it. Everyone can suggest and kind of pick a topic that you'd like to do. Now you might want yours, the typical one that you presented on the one-page thing. You want that to be addressed. But there might be a lot more of a competition about that. But I suggest that you pick a relatively simple one because of the time pressure. And we work on it. But you'll learn enough out of that to be able to do your own one. You can pick something that's not on the list at all if you want. I don't think that matters. So, just as long as you all agree and you all contribute and you all try and fill out Form A. Do we have a copy of Form Form A.
Yep.
Okay. So I have a copy of Form A, and I've managed to use the copy I have with notes. Now, okay. The group members' names. You're going to keep this anyway, so you're not handing it up, but it's nice to know who the group was. Title of the research dissertation shows only pick one. It doesn't only need to pick three unless you think you're going to get through it in half an hour. Some possible criteria, the other kind of thing I was talking about earlier. The next one on that front page, document A, selecting the literature review research domains. That's a kind of a one. You know, is this about the management of certain types of manufacturing systems in Ireland, you know? So you have to kind of, there's probably three domains that spring to mind immediately in this thing. One on the technology, management of internet, applications, apps, whatever. So you've got to get a grip on domains. There might be 3 domains, or 4 domains, or 5 domains, broad domains in any one project like this. And they'll have subdomains. And you're not going to get to the bottom of it today. You're not going to resolve all the possible this and that. The next page, if you turn the page over, is possible methodology options for a typical research dissertation. Yeah, just talking as a group. With one of us beside you in the group is kind of a facilitator. Can we kind of identify roughly what sort of methodology we're going to use? You know, is this going to be primary research, secondary research, survey, an experiment? Is it going to be some kind of rounded theory type methodology, qualitative only? You know, so there's so many different possibilities, and you may know not everything about these kind of things, but just the best you can do today, get something down. Guidelines for completing a blank dissertation. You can do that when you start. Read that. Probably the best thing to do is read this from the start and read document B from the start. Have a good glance over document B and read document C. So document A first, read that, make that your own. Document C, that's what you've got to complete. And then the nice bit is the end, where the group leader has the advantage of being able to stand up briefly. I'm not sure that we get through all of you, all groups, all things. So we select if we have to cut it short. If you want to volunteer and put yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, that's grand. We're easy with that. So did your group come up with a workable idea for a topic? So you all have done a 1-pager on topics. So you should have, out of that group, you must have some. Pick one that you kind of feel is a workable one, and then address that today. How many domains were involved in the name? 3. You know, I know about technology, I know about climate change, I know about management techniques of some sort or other. You know, pick the domains. They're going to be the literature review is going to mainly circle around those kind of areas. Now later on you're going, this is going to be too facile. Later on, as you come back and revisit this in a month's time or 2 months' time, what you want to do is dig down and you want to get specific about the domains. You won't want to be leaving that till May. Did you successfully complete the tool? That's the question. So, very quick fire sort of presentation at the end will give us an idea of how far you got. Are there big gaps in it? Are you satisfied with the section numbers identified? So you suggest section numbers, certain section, certain structure. What is the most, could you estimate the number of pages, the number of words for each of those sections? Look at the specimen that's there. You can't read today. But on the other hand, you know, it couldn't be so large that it couldn't be written in the time. And it must be like other projects that were done. So there must be some idea that you put down. As I said, it's not accurate, but you do it because it forces you to say, I don't know this, I have a big gap, I have things that need to be done. of work to do, and you can start to make a work plan. What is the most difficult part of the exercise today? That's the exercise over the next workshop. What was the easiest part of the exercise? Will the group members feel more confident in choosing a research topic for themselves and turning it into a dissertation management tool? That's really the takeaway question. Today, I will be very happy, and all of us here will be very happy, if you felt that, yeah, I saw at least an outline of structure, an outline of the size, or the shape of the dissertation for that topic. Now I must go home and I must try and do that for my own topic. I must try and test my topic first of all to see is it on the cards, and sources and the kind of qualifications I said earlier in the slide there, and they're all mentioned in document A, in the first part of that. And then, is this a basis for me to start, when I start sharing discussions with my supervisor, giving the supervisor a copy of the document, and from that taking himself to the stage where oh no, that's terribly simplistic, I better revise all this, I better do this again, I better try and dig down a bit deeper, try and specify to a finer degree of granularity. And so over maybe the next 6 months you might do 4 versions of this, and if you're very lucky and if things work out, you may well find that there is virtually the table of contents for the dissertation as it's going to end up. So it's a flexible, pragmatic, imperfect, no right answers document. Worth doing for just a few reasons. A, it forces you to start thinking now. B, it gives you some idea of the size of the task ahead. 3, it gives you a basis for communication with your supervisor, and a basis for moving on quickly, so that these first 4 months you heard today of examples where, for all sorts of reasons, you can be into February, March, April. I've even known of people that were later than that and didn't have a happy outcome, because the project got away. It's not like a simple, straightforward project that's repetitive. It's a unique little beast that has to be addressed and carried out in that flexible, pragmatic way that you must do something that's creative, and this is creative. So, without anything else to say on that score, I'd like to hand it over to the groups now. I think Mullally is going to put you in groups.
It's getting later, so we're going to go for 30-35 minutes on the session.
Yeah.
Just see how far we can get. So
Yes.
it's a rapid fire. So we're just going to make the 7 groups, and we'll start with number 1 over here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm just going to call out the members for group 1. So Tony's going to facilitate it. Giuseppe, Kieran, Micah, Carter, Dave, Rodney, and Brendan Morgan. Number 2 is White. Members are Ryan Howell, Kyle, Ziada, Rodriguez. 3 is Colin, Karim Long, Alison, Four is Jerry, Rowan,
Mark, Robert, how are you?
So do I just go through the questions?
Great. Don't worry if you have it. No, we push that.
Yeah, we probably spent too much time discussing each of our potential topics.
Yeah.
Which was one of the questions there was the easiest part of the exercise. That wasn't great to just bounce ideas off of each other and Tony here as well helped us. So we spent far too much time doing that, and then eventually we chose one of the topics, which is the idea I had for my dissertation to be the effects of using ammonium nitrate-based explosives on water courses pertaining to quarries and mines. So that's an industry I was involved in. I've actually done some previous research on it, so I'm hoping to tie it all in and get it done.
Well, a good topic, you know, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I have an interest in it. I have access to it. I have data that's already there, so if it's acceptable, it's something I'd love to run with, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like dynamite.
So, first question is, did your group come up with a workflow idea for the topic? Yes. How many domains were involved? We just kind of
looked at the EPA and so that you have existing data.
Yeah.
So
It's a headache, that's right, exactly.
three sources of data.
Yeah, the sources of data, the regulations of this, so the water framework directives.
Yeah.
Where else would we get the data? The existing research and studies, I've done a bit of research into it. I didn't find anything that's not direct precedent in this.
Right.
But there's kind of outliers in it that I think you could grab bits and pieces from it. It's a question that's definitely come up through my industrial experience.
So the rest of you as a group benefit from that. Did you see the kind of lack of thinking that you're getting? That it's hard to get the topic, but then hard to see the domains.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to get in there, yeah.
Even with some research done
Yeah.
anyway, so
It means get to that one page or kind of little hard look at it. See, that's good.
The methodology obviously falls straight away into quantitative.
You're right, yeah.
But Tony was saying, there's no reason why you couldn't introduce some of the stakeholders as well. And maybe do it in the next time.
Yeah.
especially if there's a local authority, the
Yeah.
EPAs, might get funds on it. What their level of awareness is.
Yes, yeah.
Question 4, we didn't get done. Did we get successfully complete national tool? Not today.
Oh, would you go home and do it?
I'm not actually.
I don't know if anyone did. However.
Okay, good. Section numbers, briefly look through them. Yes, we were satisfied with the section numbers identified. Estimate number of pages. We kind of did a total estimate for page 590.
Yeah.
Obviously with the Japan.
I thought it looked size-wise okay. size of it, narrowing down what you have when you see more, you know where it has to be compressed. But don't start with something that's full blast. You probably have a few examples around the place which are still very, very big, you know, need to come down. But you're handling it nicely.
Yeah, in fairness, I've talked with Pat about his project, and there are parallels with that definitely. You know, it's very easy to go down rabbit holes of, you were saying that quarries tend to be surrounded by agricultural land, and obviously they have their problems with nitrates as well. So you could go investigate that before, and you know, you could spend a long time doing it, right? So
That's good. That's great. You know, you've had that first thing on. How do I get from a title that's kind of covers a ground of research that I could manage in the time, and then produce a sort of an outline on a piece of paper, or a couple of pages to do a decent one of these DMGs, and you know, the first one of those that you have reasonably complete would be a great moment, because it means that you can start to envisage the project, you know. So well done, well done. Yeah, great. No.
Great, we'll
No.
go to table 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll go on to the proposal.
Hi, everyone, I'm Kyle. Kind of discussed all of our proposals and decided to go for the document management tool to discuss my one. So I'll just run through some of the questions similar as did our group come up with a workable idea for a topic? Yes, we did. It was eliminating hidden waste in aviation management, or in aviation, something along those lines.
Right.
How many domains were involved? We had 4 of them. Named them flight data monitoring, fatigue risk management, commonality of fleet, and crew resource management.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's a flying start, because you know you can try and do 4 things. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If those 4 things stay the same, that'd be good.
Yes. They move about a bit.
Yeah. Methodology, a lot of the stuff I'd be getting for this would be quantitative in numbers, data sets and all of that, but probably limited, if no interviews or surveys, just because of the actual type of data that it would be. So the methodology would be analysing that data and seeing if there's correlations between different factors across the industry, I suppose. Similar to what you said, there is obviously scope for interviews. You know, there's people who deal with this data every day, so I wanted to go down that route. That's certainly possible, but I think once you start looking into it, then you can make that determination. We successfully completed part of the dissertation management tool. Parts 1 and 2.
Perfectly good.
I think I can speak for the group and say we're satisfied with the section numbers identified.
Yeah.
Okay. A rough number of pages. I don't think we didn't look into that yet.
Yeah. No, that's gone.
Whatever 15,000 words is in pages, I suppose.
Yeah.
The most difficult part of the exercise, I think, for all of us kind of in the group, was everyone knows what they want to write on, but they don't know what the title is specifically or what exact part of that. But and then the easiest part of the exercise, I suppose, everyone knows what they want to write about, so that was the easy part. And would the group members feel more confident in choosing a topic? Well, yeah, I think after the discussion with everyone, we all know what we want to write about, but using this, to try and focus it, to get the question, to get the title of what we're doing, I think it'll be very helpful here.
That's pretty healthy output. Now, how about the rest of it? Did you feel that, though it's not your topic, do you sort of see how you could take your topic now and apply the same sort of discussion and come up with stuff? Good. But at least you didn't defeat the water, the toes in there, you know, stuff to be done. And it's big now. It's probably a bit bigger than it was earlier. But, now, next.
Mark, I think you're on this.
So we started off with, all of us didn't really know where we're, the title for everything, so I started off with basically my thing is to look at the digitization of government services, very big, and basically managed to, it took some time, got it narrowed down to gap analysis on deployment of e-commerce solutions in small state bodies, like that. And from there, basically, we had to work on the domains, and from there I came up with 4 of them, which is like an overview of semi-state bodies, the process of digitization, the review of implementations, and the technology involved. And basically, so we all actually started off with a very broad thing, and then we managed, I think, each of us through discussing, we found how we could, basically came out with the title. So question number 1, did we come to a workable topic? I think so. Domains, we got 4 of them, I just went through them there. And methodology, we decided that for this we need to kind of probably surveys, perhaps interviews. Did we successfully just complete it? Yeah. Is the group satisfied? Well, we all came up with a topic of some sort anyway. And that's basically as far as we got today, so, okay. Thank you.
That's not bad.
So we actually started on document C, so I'll kind of refer back to both. But the topic we went with was the impact of employee recognition on an organisation. And in terms of the domains, we decided on culture, personality types, employee turnover, leadership, change management, incentives for the team or the individual, and benchmarking. So probably quite wide, so maybe we need to narrow that down a bit. In terms of a methodology, we're going to do a mix of qualitative and quantitative, so doing surveys and interviews. Did we successfully complete the tool? Not quite, almost though. I think we thought the section was a little bit too many, so we need to narrow that down. We have no idea how many pages it's going to be. But it was a good exercise, definitely, in terms of deciding together, and it was great to get everybody's input because it made you consider different topics that you maybe I didn't consider myself. And it was great to talk together, and I think we feel more confident, but I don't know, do we?
Well done. Yeah.
Hi everyone. So we started off, like everybody else, just started with a situation where we knew a lot of our topics were too broad. We honed in on Niall's one, which was a little more concise in how it identified the research problem, so we went with that. We started off and we picked 3 domains that we felt we could go through. And I'll go back to the domain, just go through the introduction of the problem area is the volume of regulatory change and the impact that that's having on pensions business in Ireland. So we felt that that was very concise. It had the impact, and we had a concise way of looking at the 3 domains that may be required to research to get to the bottom of that problem. The rationale is there's a low uptake of pensions in Ireland. I think that we all know about that. There's a lack of compliance in some cases because the volume and the velocity of research as presented by Niall is almost too much for organisations to adapt to and meet those requirements as needed. So there's new process needed to deal with that volume. So that's the rationale for the research to begin with. The structure, we talked a little bit about in the introduction. We talked a little bit about how EU versus Irish law is playing into the problem itself that the industry is facing. The research question centred around the volume and the velocity of the regulations. They're actually presenting a barrier to entry for new players that, let's say, want to come into the pensions market. So that barrier to entry actually has an impact on customers in that the individual that, let's say, wants to contribute to a pension plan may not have the choice that they might be entitled to because there is so much regulation in the market. Went through our overview of chapters. I think for the most part we agreed on what the chapters would be. Our domains, we honed in on 3. The first was why the regulation is there in the first place. Is there any particular event why it's needed? Would the free market maybe regulate better in this situation? We thought we'd give an overview for Domain 2 around financial services in general and how pensions play into the financial services field. And then, of course, the impact that it has. We tried to home in on exactly what the word impact would mean, if it would mean an impact on employees, on customers, on the organisation, let's say on profitability, on revenue. And that's kind of where we got slightly sidetracked in that impact was a very broad term in the amount of people that it would impact, not just in the organisation, but let's say outside the organisation as well. So we walked through the methodology steps. We talked about the case study itself, and we settled on the fact that an interview would be the best. We talked about maybe interviewing 6 to 8 managers from, let's say, senior managers, and then managers that deal with regulatory change and how they deal with regulatory change, and are they able to keep up with what's going on out there. The interview type, we said, would be semi-structured, and the number of managers would be 6 to 7. And we had a fairly robust discussion about if that was enough, if there should be more people interviewed, if that was broad enough. And I think we said we wouldn't use like a Likert scale for the quantitative data. We thought it would be better to have a qualitative, semi-structured interview. That's about as far as we got. So we didn't get quite the way through all the steps, but it was a good discussion nonetheless.
It's very good at the time, actually. How about the remainder of the group? How do you feel about learning from the exercise itself? You know, do you feel that you could, those of you, you had the benefit of getting the free advice.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it actually did help because I've been in different fields in the service industry as well. So I mean, the topic I walked in the door with this morning has gone completely out the window. And I'm looking at something else entirely. So it actually helps, and even just the methodologies and stuff that's happening. I can apply that. Yeah. So I've actually learned a lot, actually.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I think the topic, it started really narrow and then it got really broad and then it went narrow again. So I think that conversation helped a lot.
Yes, good. Because it's very imprecise. This whole thing is kind of, you're getting in there and you're swimming and it's deep and it's shallow and it's, you don't know where it is at times, but you have to just come up for air and plow on. So it was a learning exercise. It helped position the thing of choosing and narrowing in, focusing, and of course then being able to structure it. And you got quite far with the structuring. You sort of, you know, it won't be too long before you're ready to put that now. At the end of next week we'll have a whole.
You have to win the front.
Hi everyone, I'm 19. Topic we chose was realising the benefits of Lean Six Sigma implementation in an Irish engineering SME. It's my topic. I work for an engineering company down in Limerick, and we have implemented Six Sigma and Lean methodologies over the last 6 or 7 years. The Six Sigma levels of knowledge, the green belts, the black belts, and the yellow belts. And I'd like to look at the implementation, whether it's been sustained, whether guys are using the tools that they've learned over the last few years, because there's a lot of investment and a lot of knowledge brought into the place. The domains we came up with were, we got 6, Lean Six Sigma, overall equipment efficiency, standard work, total productive maintenance, implementation, and driving cost benefits. So they were the 6 we came up with. The methodology was mixed, qualitative, both surveys and interviews. So surveying the guys who've been trained and the management, senior management who've implemented these processes. That's as far as we got. So that's everything we do.
It's very good. How about the rest of the group? How did you benefit from it? Did you feel that you could apply this to the topics that you had been thinking about? How soon would you have your first version?
Yeah, I suppose we all have an idea in our head, but it's good to actually put a structure and diagnose it and see how few ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. Well done.
Hi everybody, John representing this group here. Our topic was challenges implementing just-in-time inventory management for packaging lines within the Irish pharmaceutical sector. Fairly long-winded, but I think most of us have either worked in quality related roles or in the pharma industry, so that's the topic we came up with. Domains, we had just-in-time, we had the pharmaceutical sector in Ireland, supply chain, lean methodologies, material flow, change management, so there's plenty of domains there that we can expand on. Our methodology is a mixed methodology, qualitative with regard to surveys with senior management, and then quantitative with the surveys for the shop floor personnel. Did we successfully complete the dissertation management tool? No. Partly we did. We had a look at it. It followed a logical order. It seemed to make sense for our topic, and the associated word count seemed accurate. Number of pages. William's estimate is 42 on the nose, so including appendices, etc. So approximately around 40 pages is what we expect. What we found difficult was narrowing the topic, and we got good support from Peter. We started off very broad and brought us in, and at the end within Ireland as well, rather than being all encompassing as well. So that was kind of an important fine tune at the end. What was the easiest part of the exercise was the domain names, and they really popped out at us. So the question then, would the group feel more confident choosing a research topic? I think we all would, speaking on behalf of the group, and Tara is another. So what else do we have? That's really it. So from our group.
Well done. That's great. Just a few quick words. I'll really make this brief quick. Obviously, we can see when you get into this position, right up against a title, domains to be examined, a structure to be envisaged, the fire gets hotter, and you feel that you've got to do some serious thinking. Now, you've had the benefit of working with great facilitators here today, well, all bar one, that's me. They needed money, they needed help. What I say to you is, you will be working with a dedicated supervisor, and you will be able to cover this ground iteratively. It will be, you'll be covering it time and again and updating it, and in about 3 or 4 versions of that DNT tool, you'll have a clear basis for communication, a clear basis for project management, because it'll be fairly clear as you sharpen your thinking where you've got to go and what's not done and what is done, what's easy to do, what's hard to do. So you'll get all the benefits of those things. So I've nothing else to say today except that you, in a very, very short time, engaged with a project, saw the similarities with others, and I can say nothing more than hand you over to Nuala and wish you a safe home if you're travelling any distance, or any distance at all. Yeah, it's okay.
mind, don't suffer in silence if things go wrong. So it's between here and the 31st of July. It's a challenging module, it's a very rewarding module. There's a lot of expertise in your home, there's loads of people to go through. I will be in touch with you. Anne-Marie, if you want to stand up there to the back, she's also going to be contacting you during the year. So, and things happen, and you do get thrown off track where you don't expect it, but we do want to see you graduation, and that's our will is here to help you.
There's nothing showing on the screen there at the moment. A couple of points if there is. Yeah.
I just want to close today by just giving a special mention to Alan. I think that he's done so much for education, and we're very privileged to have him here this afternoon to share that pedagogical experience, because I know it's late in the afternoon, but it's very clear you all got learned something out of it, so thanks to Alan for that. And finally, I was looking, as we all know, John and Newman was canonized last week, and Sunday, and I introduced to television, and I was thinking of the parallels, and so Cardinal Newman was obviously performed miracles. He was the founder of your city, and he was also credited with the introduction of evening classes for adult members. And so Alan is one of the founding fathers of open education at DCU, and he has made an immense and immeasurable contribution to higher education in Ireland, Trinity and DCU and other various institutes and technologies. And he's definitely performed miracles when it comes to students and their dissertations. I think you are the Newman of our day.
I'm not Mullally.
So when all things outfield now afraid of him, they've had a lot of excitement in their house recently because his wife celebrated a very significant birthday, and he shares this same significant birthday this month. And I don't know what date it is, because every time I ask him what date is it your birthday, he just keeps telling me. He glides over the question and responds with, "Do you know I'm a toy boy?" So on just on behalf of open education, we have a token of appreciation on the occasion of the month of your 18th birthday. So